Megavan and Melanin, welcome to the Why Ukraine live stream. You are the last alliance, and I thank you for coming. We're going to talk about the news, and we're going to talk about an amazing thing that happened actually while I was in the middle of my last live stream. And that is this big prisoner swap that happened. And I knew about it. I knew it was happening, and I chose not to speak about it. Keith, Robert, it wasn't me. Michelle, you know they exist. Thank you very much for setting the pace. Your donations are extraordinarily helpful, especially this week. As you know from last stream, I've been building drones here in Ukraine. And Ken, Flo, thank you for coming. I'm glad you can make it. Mark, it's wonderful that you're here. Lauren, Herb, wow, so many people. I'm already feeling better. I came on in a bit of a... yeah, it's pouring rain here in this particular part of Ukraine. But that's a good thing. I love the rain. I love walking home in the rain, even if I get a little bit wet. So it wasn't bad at all. Sunlight is what I despise. You know, I am a goth. After all. So ostensibly, this is an amazing thing that happened. It's wonderful, and I am so happy. Even ESPN is reporting on it. Man, when ESPN reports on something, CF, thank you for coming. When ESPN reports on something, it's like, that's not sports directly. Obviously, it's connected to this women's basketball player. Kenneth, thank you so much for gifting memberships to people. Bull Banks, Richard Denny, FM, Northern Chimp. You're all members now. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being members. And ostensibly, this is a wonderful thing that happened 2 days ago now. And I want to just, give blessings, I guess, for lack of a better term, to those. Vladimir Karamurza, by the way, an incredibly important person. Arguably in... Okay, let's see if I can copy this. Again, try it. Vladimir Karamurza, if you don't know, one of the, arguably, I would say, a potential leader of the Russian opposition. So the fact that he was let go, it also helps that he was also a British citizen as well as a Russian citizen, Pulitzer Prize winner, and here he is, returned home with his family. You can see how much weight he lost. He's been on Silicon Curtain, that YouTube channel. If you haven't watched it, you should. Silicon Curtain. He's been on there many times, and he's a great voice for freedom and democracy in Russia. So these are really amazing things that happened. And the other, the Russian hitmen, and just general evildoers, that, I mean, you could argue that's the price that we paid. And some other YouTuber, I can't remember who, maybe it was Artur Rehi, made a point today that the these spies who they're going back to Russia, that doesn't mean they're going back to a better life. They are likely to themselves be tortured, at the very least interrogated, but certainly tortured, to get information out of them about their time in the West. And there's Russia has a long history of that. I think this is a shocking little piece of news. Children of undercover Russian spy couple only learned their nationality on the flight to Moscow. Wow, Belle, thank you very much. Thank you for that. It wasn't me. Brandy, F2, love of cats. All these wonderful people. CJ Green, people you never comment, so I don't know you're there. But it's nice that you are. Can you imagine that, though? You think you are in the free country of Argentina. You think you are an Argentina citizen. This girl looks like she's what, maybe 11 or 12? This young girl here. And it turns out, like, yeah, you're actually going to Russia, and you're a Russian citizen now. You're basically going from Argentina, which arguably has its problems, but is a democracy. Now you were going to Russia. Oh, they were in Slovenia. I see. I thought they were in Argentina. So, but they're Argentinians, but they were living in Slovenia, also an EU democracy. Going to school in EU schools, having freedom. Can you imagine what those, I guess, 2 children that they had? Yeah, 2 children. What kind of a horrible shock they're going to have when they, first set foot in a Russian school, for example. I mean, that's assuming they even ever see their parents again. So this is, it's an amazing thing, but I didn't talk about it because I felt like, I already had enough to talk about last Thursday, and arguably things that were more important. And we talked about drones, and we talked about F-16s and things and other problems that are happening. And I just felt like it was too much and too big to discuss at the time. Cheryl, thank you for coming. I hope the sound of the rain is not too loud. I do have the window open to get some fresh air. But so you saw, of course, you must have seen my thumbnail. I don't mean this thing on the end of my thumb. I mean the YouTube thumbnail, the picture for this live stream. And you must be saying, well, wait a minute, why could this possibly be a bad thing? At least for us, for America. One response that I saw was that, well, Putler clearly knows he's losing, and so he's just trying to not lose too badly. And that may be so. I don't know. That's difficult to say. But I don't think so. I think that I do think that this prisoner swap, was precipitated. I mean, I know it's been in the works for a long time, and I understand that Navalny was originally going to be one of the people exchanged, and arguably Putin had him killed so that he could be taken off the table for as part of this deal. But why did it happen now? Why did it go through now, of all times? That's the question, right? Good Lord, I cannot hear anything beyond James's voice. Well, when you put it that way. But why should this happen now? And I have my own suspicions that to some degree this was precipitated by Kamala Harris. Yeah. In other words, I think that Putin would rather have saved this as a win for Trump. If he thought Trump was going to win, he would have saved this for Trump, at least until after the election, like middle of November. He might have done this. And then Trump could say, you see what I did? But no, he chose to do it now. And even though I understand that, according to the news, that the diplomats negotiating on the west side had no direct contact, Jake Sullivan. Yeah, here we go. This might be. Oh, that's from the article. Jake Sullivan. No contact with Putin. Yeah, no engagement, he said, with Vladimir Putin directly. But nothing happens. Yeah, but nothing happens in Russia. Well, that's an interesting. Now, it wasn't me. So you said I heard the Russians were in a hurry because they thought Germany wouldn't want to do a favor to Trump. And by the way, I would just say that. Let's see if we can find the article here. German reaction to prisoner swap. Yeah. How Germany enabled, but the in general. The Germans, particularly the German defense. Yeah, here we go. U.S.-Russia prisoner swap causes blowback in Germany and Holland. Some Germans think the hostage, so the German reaction to the prisoner swap has been, not taken. Here it says, they say it right here. This is very interesting. Some Germans think the hostage exchange with Russia was a dirty deal, but preserving good relations with America was more important. And the Biden wanted to score a win. Okay, that's what it comes down to. Biden, and he said, all right, he was asked about, blah, 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 President Trump. And Biden said, well, why didn't he do it when he was president? So it's a major, major win for not Biden, but for Kamala. Yeah, indeed, it is possible the prisoner of war swap was just a big middle finger to 45. Okay. And it's a major win for Biden and thereby Kamala Harris. Let me ask you something, though. Do you think that Vladimir Putin gave a rat's ass about Evan Gershkovich. He cared about Navalny. He made sure Navalny was not a part of this deal. The rest of those people, he doesn't give a rat's ass. He does not care. They were just less than pawns, okay, to get what he could. And so what did he get from this? Did he really want those did he really want those, arrested spies and sub-criminals? Were they really that important to him, these people? I would argue no. What he did get, perhaps, was the goodwill of not just the Biden administration, but the possible future Kamala Harris administration. He wanted to show Kamala Harris, hey, we can make a deal. We can make a deal. He saw that the potential for him losing. And so this is what the Russians do, right? When they see they're losing, that's when they make concessions. And thank you, Petra. Yes, Flo, and you're right. It was 2 years in the making. That's true. But why did it happen now? Why couldn't it be 2 more years? What's the rush? For Russia, there's no rush. Unless they have a good reason. I don't know. Let's see what the Hill says. 3 reasons Putin agreed to the prisoner exchange. Look how much weight Evan Gershkovich lost. Exchange of 24 prisoners. Why would Russia's dictatorial president agree to the deal? What's in it for him? We may safely exclude any hint of humanitarian concern. Yeah. He did not care about Vadim Krazikov or any of the other people. Okay, so they say the message was intended for Russians. And for those naive Westerners who still think that the war with Ukraine can be ended without full acceptance of Putin's terms. Interesting. Putin also demonstrated, and I would agree with this as well, that arresting Americans and other Westerners on trumped-up charges of espionage, or anything else for that matter, works like a charm. It's always a thing he can do. As long as there's Americans or Westerners stupid enough to go to Russia or get anywhere near to any country even sympathetic with Russia. Far more important than getting 8 failed spies back is the exchange involved in saying good riddance to 2 Democratic activists, Vladimir Kara-Murza and Ilyashin. Fair. I don't think that the Hill has a good explanation of the greater concept, however, in general. I truly believe that it's to show... Ozzy Bugga. I was on ATP Geopolitics on Saturday. Yeah, I talk to Jonathan pretty regularly. I've been on this show several times, but yeah, I actually we do chat. I didn't get a chance to hear his live stream today. I was too busy, but I will go back and listen to it. Cheryl, Lauren, and if you give the POWs back, you can stop feeding them, right? Let's see. Okay, so Cheryl, I've heard the Biden administration wants to keep Putin's government alive to negotiate for the Ukrainian children in the future. That's fair. I don't think. I strongly doubt that the Biden administration is thinking about Ukrainian children. Yeah, no, Ozzy Bugga. No, it's all good. You know, I'm always on the less popular live streams. But yeah, Jonathan and I get along great. We have a good time. So no, I mean, I really think that this is a deception. It's a deception. That's the most important thing. A deception to show to Kamala Harris specifically that, hey, I can be dealt with. I can make a deal. You know, that's really what I think was going on there, and that's why this moment right here, I felt like, holy shit, this is the moment when they were deceived. You know, and so I fear terribly. I fear greatly. Shahar, by the way, thank you for coming. I fear terribly that, Russia basically was looking at defeat from, the possibility of Kamala stepping in, and he said, boy, I better take action. I better take action right now. JP Vanek, thank you for coming. Petra, I can't send super chat. Will not send it. That is so strange. I think I've heard of some people having issues with super chats when they were on their phone. I could be wrong about that, but thank you for wanting to send a super chat. Thank you for that sentiment, nonetheless. If you guys, I love your super chats, and that is absolutely wonderful. But never forget that we are doing multiple fundraisers, and you can help me directly by purchasing. These are all Ukrainian made things that I physically get in my hands and then send to you physically with my hands. This is not drop shipping. It's not being printed. These are Ukrainian companies, and insofar as I'm aware, even this T-shirt gets physically sewn in Ukraine. So it's not like they're just getting T-shirts from Bangladesh, and to my knowledge, at least, and printing on them. No, I've physically seen them, sewing them on their machines. So it's made in Ukraine. This stuff, to the best of my ability, I do try to verify all that. It includes all of the patches and everything else. But the most important, guys, is, by the way, these are all Ukrainian hryvnia prices. $419. That's like $10. I think $10 or $15. Up to, I believe this is $100. The most expensive component. And I actually, all of these things, not this exact model, but all of these items, I actually got to install and hopefully will continue to do so on drones. And I'm going to show you some videos about that later today. Yes. Okay. Shahar, who is the person with Biden? That is Evan Gershkovich. Wait, let me go back to the picture. Yeah. So this is Evan Gershkovich, one of the many prisoners who was exchanged for Russian spies. By the way, this picture of Evan Gershkovich, the first thing that stuck out to me was that I actually own that shirt. That exact shirt. Oh, Bell, you're very smart. Much smarter than me. So this is, here you go. Whyukraine.com. That is the Shopify store for buying stuff that goes, if you didn't know, you'll have to go back and watch earlier live streams. I need to put a section on my website that shows like who are you supporting and who have we supported in the past, because it doesn't really help to say support Ithil Ambar secret drone lab near the front, but that's all I can say. That's all I'm legally permitted to say. Okay, because I can't give away exactly where these guys are, and I can't show their faces. It's a real problem. It wasn't me. You said it's a nice shirt, James. Wait, did you get your shirt? Did you get a shirt? Did you get it? Oh my God! Please, for the love of Christ, go on our Discord or something and post a picture of it. Because someone already posted a picture of the things that they got, and so it's wonderful to me that they actually got through customs. It didn't get blocked or something. I was terrified that was going to happen. The Last Alliance. Is there an app, or can you post the prices in USD? Some of the shoppers might not know how to get conversion from Ukrainian dollars. This is coming up with Ukrainian dollars because I am in Ukraine. Google and Shopify detect that I am in Ukraine, and so it converts. So if you are in New Zealand, or if you are in Mexico or in the United States, it's going to show up in your denomination of money, to be clear. So I would have to go onto my I would have to go into a VPN, and then my throughput would be shit. But yes, when you go to the site, it will show the price in American dollars or whatever your local currency is. JP Vanek, can I get your Discord info, please? I should have known that someone was going to ask about that. I need... Hang on. Give me a moment. Oh, you meant the shirt Gerskovich was wearing in the picture. I know. Okay. Yeah, thank you. It is a great shirt. I concur. And that is why I bought it in a secondhand shop in Ukraine, even though, to be perfectly honest, it was a little bit small for me. Yes, Bell. So Bell says, I just looked at it and it was in all in USD for me. Evan was just sentenced to 16 years on false charges about 2 weeks ago. So glad he was released. Yeah. And I am too, and we all are. It wasn't me. Let's see. I don't really agree. Putin had to take hostages and threaten to kill them to get the West to negotiate. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, you make a fair point. But that's what he does, right? That's what the Russians have done historically for decades. There's been no change from the Soviet Union. Okay. So this is interesting, though. How Moscow's concerned about a potential Trump presidency sped up the deal that freed. Okay, this is the Wall Street Journal's take on it. I'm not going to go through their paywall, but that's their take, I suppose, and that could be one. But I would just posit to you that this was a calculation on Putin's part to facilitate good, just in case Trump doesn't win, to facilitate good relations. JP Vanek, thank you for asking. Give me one moment and I will post this. Okay. Yeah. And There we go. Copy. And here you are. This is the Discord invite. It's only good for an hour, and it's only good for 10 people. I have to limit these things because there are lots of bad actors and who are constantly trying to cause me problems, and most of them are Russian trolls, but not all, sadly. Lauren, now I know. Yes, and there are still several Americans in Russian prisons, CZ says. Mark Fogel, right, that's right. Prescribed medication discovered in his bag at the airport, and he was arrested, yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you, Shahar. The Wall Street Journal does seem to have a general pro-Russian spin, and has for some time. Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting point. Rick Wilson. So Mark said that Rick Wilson of the Lincoln Project had a beautiful summing up of the exchange. It shows Putler is desperate, and the Russia. Oh, I like your terminology there. The Russia, the Russia will see and be angry that the exchange was not one for one. Yeah, you know what, Cheryl, you make an excellent point as well. Hopefully, Kamala will know his type. She's dealt with, homicidal maniac criminals before, I believe. Yeah. So, yeah, and about calling for negotiations between Muscovy and Ukraine. Yes. CZ, OPSEC is crucial. I actually have to use an alternate name account for the work I do helping animals in Ukraine. Wow. I don't doubt that. Yes. CF Votniks, yes. That's fair. It is a little silly to carry weed on an international flight. Most countries do not have legal medical weed. As a herb fan myself, I never carried it over a border. You hear that, Herb? Sorry, couldn't resist. I mean, yeah, you may be right, but I do hope, Cheryl, as you do, that that Putin will not be able to deceive Kamala. But then I look at this picture and I see that big happy smile. And I think, oh my God. That's the emotion that runs through me. And that's how I felt. And Robert, thank you. Wow, becoming a Defenders of Ukraine. Holy crap, amolies. That's no joke, dude. That's a BFD, my friend. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. So I want to move on from this subject a little bit because I feel like I've spent 30 minutes beating that horse. And I want to talk about a really important conversation I had today, and it's related to this because so I had this discussion with a student today. And I get asked this constantly all the time, right? All the time. And the question was, why are you in Ukraine? Why are you helping Ukraine? And why do members of the International Legion, I was specifically talking about these guys. We were looking at this picture when he was saying this, and he said, "Why did these guys come to Ukraine? Why are they here? Why would they want to come to Ukraine in the middle of a war?" You know, I had a comment on my YouTube channel and I'm not sure I can find the comment at this point. Maybe it's in my lists here. Oh my gosh, so many comments. Russian trolls, blah blah blah. But there was a Ukrainian who said to me, "Why are you in you?" What he said? Well, very bad English. He said, "What you do in Ukraine? We have war." Here we go, right here. What you do in Ukraine? In our country, war. Right? Like, we have a war here. Why are you here? This is an incredibly difficult thing to explain to Ukrainians. And so I asked my yes, thank you, Lauren, because Ukraine needed help and they could help them. I agree with you. Oh, Maria, thank you very much. But I think you're wrong about Kamala Harris. She's going to be a big supporter of Ukraine and NATO. I hope you're right. Please understand my gut clinching fear. Yeah. But Lauren, because Ukraine needed help and they could help them. Right. But to say that to a Ukrainian or to a Russian, and forgive me here because, oh, wow. Okay. Aussie Bugga, the same reason why Byron fought for Greece. Some care and are brave enough to fight for another country. No greater love. Yes. See, I understand that. You understand that. Because they have balls. We understand this. Okay. But last stream, you guys may recall, I think it was last stream, I was speaking about family values in Ukraine and what Ukrainians value. And I was speaking to my student today. This was like 2 hours. Wait, what time was it? It was 1:00 today. And I said, "Well, why do you think these guys are here?" And he said, "Well, I think," and by the way, I've heard this from many Ukrainians. First of all, Ukrainians believe that people who are here helping Ukraine, or specifically fighting for Ukraine, they must be here for the money. Okay. At which point I laughed. I said, "Do you think that the paltry sum that an American or British or European person would get for fighting in Ukraine? Yes, it is quote unquote up to $3,000 a month, but you get paid by the day, per day, on the zero line. Let's be clear about this, okay? It is set, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think $70 per day on the zero line. Nobody is on the zero line for 30 days in a row, or extremely rarely. You get put on the zero line for a week, maximum 2, and then you get off the zero line and you're sent back to the base or the safe house, and then you're switched back to regular pay. Or there's also a middle pay of, like, I think it's $40 a day, roughly speaking, for that kind of, if you're in this, not the zero line, but I guess the 1 line or something. Okay, it's a paltry sum. Okay, which is why it's so confusing for Ukrainians. So the other thing my student said was, well, these just must be the type of people who just really want to kill. They just really like to kill people, and now they get to come to somewhere that they can kill people legally. Oh, yeah, Cheryl. And most of their wages go to the equipment that they end up having to buy themselves. Yeah, except for the minimal paltry amount that they, get from charity, and especially in the International Legion. The only thing that's given to the International Legion by the Ukrainian government is the weapons, and it's just light weapons. It's just AKs and bullets, or maybe M4s. Okay. They don't get vehicles. They don't get freaking artillery support. They don't even have drone teams. They don't have reconnaissance. Nothing. And that's not all of them. There is at least. It depends on the unit. Second battalion has a drone team. Okay, but the drones that they get come from NGOs, from charities. Everything is from charities. Okay, because why? Because Ukrainians, I said this last stream, care about family. That's why. And so it's inconceivable. It's like trying to explain quantum mechanics. It'd be easier to explain quantum mechanics. Hello, Herb. We were just talking about you. It'd be easier to explain quantum mechanics. Is this still the Soviet mindset, CF? That's an excellent question that I have. I would say perhaps yes. It's, I would call it a tribal mindset. Not in an insulting way, but just in the sense that family, tribe, clan, these things come first. Okay, and so I was trying to explain it like I said to my student. I said, so the fact that you think that Ukrainians, I'm sorry, that Americans would come to fight for Ukraine because of the money, or because they just want to, have the opportunity to kill people and get away with it, that speaks about your values. That speaks about what who you are as a person. That's a reflection of you. That blew his mind, right? Totally blew his mind. Why? Okay, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble clicking on this. Herb, you have chat but bad video. Strange. Yeah, probably. Yeah, if you were in Ukraine, you'd have better internet. Okay, so explain quantum mechanics. Okay, that's another live stream, Robert. I could, though. I was a science teacher. I taught quantum mechanics to Native American Indians, and they loved it. They really liked it. It really jived with their worldview, actually. Anyway, point is, Ukrainians they value freedom. Don't get me wrong; they value freedom, but they value their own freedom, right? And that's what my student said, right? Yeah, we want to fight for our freedom, or maybe some of us want to fight for our freedom, but these guys, they're not fighting for their own freedom. They're fighting for someone else's freedom. How could that be? Why would you do that? This, yeah, Herb, sorry, it's probably your VPN. Or Lauren, quantum mechanics, why it takes 4 of them to replace my fan belt. I have replaced a fan belt, and I can tell you that sometimes I've needed 3 people to replace a fan belt. for sure. Especially a serpentine belt. Those things suck. So this, Ukraine, I would say, considers itself to be a Christian country. We call it Orthodox Christian. They just call it Christian. And yeah, there we go. Cheryl, sounds like Scottish Highlanders. Now you're starting to get it, right? So this is a problem, and why is it related to this prisoner exchange, the prisoner swap? Yeah. Sorry, Herb. Yeah, you know how it is. Turn it off and turn it back on again, usually 9 times out of 10. Why is this related to the prisoner swap? And I'll tell you, because Wednesday, June 2022, Ukraine's Zelensky rejects trading land for peace with Russia. Okay, and that's been the line until 2 days ago. Zelensky took another concrete step towards launching ceasefire talks with Russia by saying he might call for a referendum on the issue of making territorial concessions to Russia ahead of planned negotiations this autumn. Oh yeah, Maria, I agree. Who have stepped down and will be working for Kamala Harris in the position that Jake Sullivan has now. Just saying. Yes, I'm aware of that, and I can't remember the guy's name. So please remind me of that guy's name. Yes. So CF, empathy, right? But do you have? Okay, so the definition of tribalism is, I have my family, I have my clan, I have maybe my tribe. Maybe we could even extend that to my nation. And I care about that circle. And I would even argue that most conservatives in America, with their family values and caring about America, the country of America, and America first. Okay, Philip Gordon. Thank you, Cheryl. That's the person who will hopefully replace Jake Sullivan, and I know he's a big proponent of Ukraine, and I hope he will see through the lies. Yes, Ozzy Bugga. I completely agree with you. This feels selfish, but I hope there is no ceasefire. Unless Russia cracks internally, they will just do this again. But if the Ukrainian people agree on terms, then that is what it will be. Sure, Keith Kane. I would tell them it's a battle of good versus evil. We relate and see ourselves in Ukrainians. We share a lot of similarities and values. America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, Greg, thank you for coming. And Keith, thank you. That's a really succinct way of putting it. And I think I have put it that way sometimes to them. But of course, understand that not every American understands or believes in what you just said. But yeah, Cheryl, that's true. I'd like to know more about. Maybe that I'll cover that on perhaps a future live stream, or maybe the end of this live stream. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Tribalism is us versus them. It's me and my family. We are the people. Okay, doesn't matter if you're talking about the Dene people, right? which Dene, it's the tribal name for the Navajo tribe. Okay, Navajo is an exonym, a name given from people outside. The tribal name for the Navajo is Dene, means the people. Their exonym means the enemies. The same by the same reason. German. Okay, the Germans. What do they call themselves? Deutsch. The Deutsch. The Deutsch. Originally, the name meant like the people of the tribe or the tribal people. It just means the people. Deutschland means the land of the people. We call them Germans. Probably there's various etymologies, but one of the etymologies is that ger, like in Roger, means spear. So that word part means spear, and so it means spearmen. you know, so that's the essence of tribalism. CZ, I believe experiences and how people were raised have a lot to do with it. Some people have much deeper levels of compassion and empathy for others and feel called to serve. Volunteers, teachers. Yeah. And oh, he's one of her options. Okay, Maria, that's important to know. Okay, everyone has a different name for the Deutsch. Yes, all the Allemagne, like the French, means, I guess it means like all the men or something. But they were a specific tribe. The Alemannians were a tribe of Germans that were near to France, and there's still okay. Don't get me started on ancient history. I won't stop talking. Exonym. Yes, I'd never heard that term exonym, but immediately knew what it meant by the way it was used. Yeah, Lauren, thank you. American aid to Ukraine is one of those times when the moral and practical paths coincide. Yes, aid to Ukraine is simultaneously the right thing for practical and moral reasons. But then now you understand why Russian trolls and hackers and Russian people in general, when they see America giving money or giving aid to Ukraine, they say, "Oh, America is just using the poor, dumb Ukrainians." Yeah, Nemtsy. Okay, Ozzy Bugga said, "Is it Nemensky in Russian, the word for Germans?" No, Nemtsy. This is actually what Timothy Snyder said, and I believe it's true. The word Nemtsy, Niemcy, something like that in Ukrainian. It's the Ukrainian word for German, and it means people who can't speak. So people who can't speak your language, right? Yeah, so CZ, I see this a lot with animals. Some people can literally walk away or walk past an animal in need. Others will move mountains to help and save. Yeah. So, yeah, it's that recognition of this person or this animal or this animal person is the same as me. And so I brought up the idea to my student that we as Americans, and possibly even British people, if you're British, chime in on this. We believe in democracy, and we believe in democracy not just for us, but for the whole world. In the sense of, was it Benjamin Franklin who said, we must all hang together or we shall all hang separately? If one group is, if one country is not free and people who want to be free are not free, then no one is free. It's like a row of dominoes or a house of cards. When one democracy falls, the next one is the next to follow. And I this is going to be a little bit controversial, what I'm about to say. I made the distinction with my student, and he said, "Well, why don't Americans, why do they want to help Ukraine? Why couldn't they help Syria? Why couldn't they help the Palestinians? Why couldn't they go fight against Israel?" You know, and I said, "Now, all right, this is gonna be controversial for you guys," but I said, "Do the Palestinian or Syrian people, Kurds accepted, do they truly want democracy? Do they truly want freedom?" Oh, hey, Tridents. Sakai, Secular Sakai, thanks for coming. But so this is the question that I asked to my student. And personally, my perception is that the Arab Spring showed us that there is a minority of people in the Middle East who truly value freedom and democracy. And there was a time in 2012, 2010, 11, 12, 13 even, when we could have and should have helped those people blossom in the Middle East and show that blossoming of freedom and show that America wants to help and other Western nations want to help people who want to help themselves be free. And we failed. We failed in the Middle East in that way. Yeah. JPH, we believe in standing by things that are right and by people who want to have freedom. And this is literally, guys, I just explaining this to Ukrainian. I even wrote to Greg Terry today. Oh, hello, Anna. Thank you for coming. I wrote to Greg Terry today and asked him for advice. Because I wanted to use like a biblical teaching or expression, like even the littlest sparrow falls, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, that sort of thing. And Lauren, yeah, as a government, the U.S. helps like-minded countries. There are individuals in the U.S. that support the opposite. I would say that historically, the United States has under various administrations, the United States has not always stood with democracy. They've sometimes the United States has stood with their interests, and they understand governments having interests. Ukrainians understand that, but they don't understand why American individuals would want to give up everything that they have in America to come. And Greg, I was specifically talking about you in this regard as well. I was saying, I happen to know personally an American who is in Kyiv right now doing 3D printing stuff, and it was just blowing this Ukrainian's mind. And over and over and over, I see that from Ukrainians, and I don't know how to translate this. And Maria, yes, most Palestinian people in Scandinavia are standing with democracy and have never argued for religious leadership. It's a very good point. In Scandinavia, I would argue that the Kurds are the greatest hope for democracy, religious pluralism, and egalitarianism in the Middle East. Right. Too many comfortable people in too many comfortable places. They care about what the Kardashians, famous actors, and sports figures are doing instead of what is happening in our world. And people who care like these men, by the way, who are most probably dead by now. Um, I don't know if you guys know about or have heard of, let's see, Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Yeah. Stages, Kohlberg's stages of moral development, and he has 4 stages, maybe 3, right? So, stages of moral development: pre-conventional, which is young children, based on reward and punishment. And a lot of people will say that this is also a criminal uh, moral development. So adult criminals tend to be in this moral reasoning stage. Okay. Then you have conventional, which is moral reasoning based on external ethics. I don't know if you're not familiar with Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Uh, I would say that most Ukrainians, and I'd say most people in general, live here in the conventional morality. But I would say, I would even say more so, most of the Ukrainians I talk to live here in the morality of self-interest, which is to say that it's expanded to the circle of your family, and maybe your country, but mostly not. It's mostly about your family. Okay. And morality is very transactional. And somebody said that is a perhaps a descendant of this old Soviet mentality, and perhaps you're right. Perhaps you're right. I would say that the distinct difference between Ukrainians and Russians is Ukrainians have a memory of freedom and a legend of freedom that is a core to that is the Cossack legend, that is core to their nationhood and their sense of selves. Let me give you another example. I took the bus here. It was like a 2-hour bus ride. And when you take a bus in Ukraine, or I assume an airplane too, but I haven't done that here yet, except when I came from Norway. If you get on the bus here, nobody talks to each other. Nobody talks to each other. You don't. Now, I want to set this aside because I don't want you to think that Ukrainians are not good people, warm, caring, helpful. I don't want you to receive the impression that Ukrainians will not give you practically the shirt off their back. But they're shocked, absolutely shocked, when someone from another country comes and helps here. This is why, when Greg Terry talks about how grateful, thankful, frankly, flabbergasted Ukrainians are when an American shows up with a bunch of stuff and aid for them to help them. It's because they're thinking, wait a minute, this guy's not part of my family. This person's not related to me. Why is he doing something good for me? So, Ukrainians don't talk to strangers. They don't, if you're sitting next to someone on the bus for 2 hours or 6 hours, you may not say even a word to them the whole time. and this is definitely a Russian mentality that I also see here in Ukraine as well, a little bit older, is a smiling. Smiling at strangers is not done, right? Because unless you are close friends or close family, you don't smile at people. Smiling at people you don't know means I know something you don't know. It's a transactional in the sense that I'm giving you something. I'm giving you a smile. I must want something in return. Ukraine, especially older Ukrainians, think of when they see Americans smiling, they think, uh, they think, well, they're hypocrites. Americans are hypocrites. Maria, that's very interesting. Same thing in Scandinavia. We are quiet on buses and trains. And can I tell you, Maria, that I traveled around Sweden, mostly Sweden and Norway, for almost 2 months, and every time I would ride the bus, and I would, start talking a little bit, and some Swedish person, the bus driver or anyone else, would hear that I was an American, and they would start pouring out their heart to me, absolutely telling me everything about their entire goddamn lives. And they would always say, "Oh my God, here in Sweden, nobody talks to each other. We all just, we're all just quiet, and nobody wants to talk, and I can't connect with anyone." And they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I met an American. I feel like I can talk to you." It's really funny to me, Maria. I had this happen many times. Mark, let's see. I find that amusing. In the US, you can be on an elevator and the person next to you will start talking to you. Yes, absolutely. Uh, I think it's a European thing. Yes, London public transport, you don't speak unless you are traveling with them. People talking loudly get looked at sternly. It's disrupting. And maybe I would say London, perhaps. I've had the experience outside of London of strangers talking to me. I had this really strange experience. I spent 2 weeks in England, and everywhere I went, people gave me cheese for some reason. Oh, this has me thinking of Johnny FD's recent stand-up. But why are you here? Yeah. In the Midwest, it's a small downtown thing. It's not meant to be rude. I just talked to 2 random roofers in the parking lot about the rabbit in my engine this morning. Wait, 5th one this year, Cheryl. Why are you putting rabbits in your engine? Yes, Maria. Yeah, but I had many, not just on the bus, but many Swedish people express really just deep gratitude in a very emotional way for letting me talk to them, or letting them talk to me. Okay, anyway, you get the idea. That's interesting. I cannot help at least smiling at strangers. The name of my state, Texas, is derived from Tejas, meaning friend. Yes. They were trying to show you that cheese should not be orange. That was probably the one thing I took back with me from England, was that cheese should not be orange, Ozzy. So they were successful. Yeah, so this is a really hard thing to. I would say it is a European thing. Cheese is a code word, James. I missed out. No, I did not. The cheese was amazing and lovely. Whatever else they might have been offering, I don't think it could have been better than the cheese they gave me. This is a European thing, I would argue. Wait a minute, there's something wrong with my sound. Okay, I'm back. This is a European thing, I would argue, that you Europeans are not very good at talking to strangers, and you have this tendency to not share your entire life with someone you don't even know after 10 minutes on the bus together. But that's because you've all been living in the same goddamn place for the last 5,000 years. And if you meet someone from, freaking, I don't know, France, you know everything about them. You hear them speak, you say, oh, they're from France. You already know everything you need to know about them. You don't even need to know their name. You just hear how they speak and how they look, and you're like, oh, there's a French person. I don't need to know anything about that person now. Okay. Whereas and I would argue that not just Americans, but also in my experience, Australians. I don't know about New Zealanders, but Canadians. Maria, try to take a train through Finland, then you will be speaking to yourself. Yes, Aussie Bugga. I grew up in rural Australia. Everyone says good day to everyone where I grew up. Yes. Now we here in Ukraine they do say Dobry Den, which is good day. But I would argue that you Europeans have a great deal more trust for each other than we Americans, Australians, even actually people from India, native English speakers in India do the same thing where they like blah 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 tell you their whole life story on a plane flight or something. And I don't think it's necessarily because we are more friendly necessarily. I think it's because we don't trust each other and we want to know, who the hell am I sitting next to? If you're from Australia, shit. You guys were all descended from criminals, right? And in America, fuck, our president, well, ex-president, is a criminal. And here in Ukraine, even throughout this entire war, I've said this before, Ukraine and Europe in general is an incredibly safe place, an incredibly safe country. I cannot emphasize that enough. Yes, oh, right. Well, in the USA, if someone wants to share their entire life story with me in the first 5 minutes, they're going to be the kind of friend who demands way more bandwidth than I have to give. That is correct. Yes, I do exaggerate a little bit there. But maybe if you guys have a 5-hour conversation, but at least if you have a 5-minute conversation with someone, you're going to know the basics. You're going to know where they're from and what they do. We are quiet to our countrymen. This is funny, Maria. We are quiet to our countrymen, but we speak to strangers because we will never meet them again. Yes, saying hello is a way of gauging intent. Yes, talking about the weather is a substitution for your emotions. When you talk about the weather with someone, you're checking in on their emotional state. And then you go into, so, where are you from? Or what do you do? And then we get into this whole ritual of exchange. Okay? And Ukrainians don't have that. That's like going to a therapist, Maria. That's funny. Yeah, I've had that. I did have that I had that exact experience in Sweden. But you don't have that in Ukraine because the connections are all, yes. Oh, Miriam. Yes, Kiwis are generally friendly. I have seen that to be the case. But you have a bunch of people, they're all riding on the bus, okay? And I was riding on the bus, when I came here for a couple of hours, and I almost felt like I could see these ephemeral strings, social ties, if you will, tying them to, not to each other in any way, but to their families, wherever their families are. And they don't need to talk to the person next to them because Ukraine is an incredibly safe place. And you don't need to worry about the person sitting next to you possibly following you off the bus and, mugging you on the way to your car, as I've had many Americans that I know happen or nearly happen to. You in America, you need to know who's close to you, who's next to you, what are their intentions, where are they from, what do they do, are they good people, are they bad people? Okay. Here in Europe and in Ukraine especially, you don't need to know that. You don't need to know anything about anyone who's not a part of your family. Oh yeah, KKCG. That's kind of Danny Darko. Wow, that was a Danny Darko moment. You're right. You're quite right. I had that vision. So this brings me all the way back around to my deep and terrifying concern. Okay. Zelensky calls for a referendum on giving up territory to Russia. Now, 1/3 of Ukrainians would give up land for peace, but it's not as simple as that. Okay, now this is from July 31st. Okay, 55%. I don't know where the statistic is in here, but 55% would not agree to that. Okay, but now things are starting to shift. So here in Ukraine, okay, so it's gone from 10% of Ukrainians who would be willing to give up land for peace currently to 32%. Okay, and I would argue that that is a sign of the weakening ties. Yeah, there we go, Cheryl. I have very loose family ties. Family is spread out all over. That is a very typical American thing. Okay, I have family in freaking New York and Hawaii and Florida and Wisconsin and California. You know, Lauren, it seems like 90% of Texans are expert meteorologists. um, um, so this weakening of ties, I'm speaking of specifically about the weakening of ties to the occupied territories. Okay. So my city is full. Maybe more than 50% of the town are people who previously lived in the occupied territories. And now they are internally displaced refugees in my city, in the middle of Ukraine. Okay. Why should they care if they're home in you know, Kherson Oblast or Zaporizhia Oblast, if their home is destroyed, if all their family there is dead, if they have nothing to go back to, why should they care about what happens in those places? You know? Why should they care? That I believe, among other things, that I believe is what is being reflected here in that 32%. Now, I've said many times that if Zelensky took a big risk in even calling up on this referendum, you know, but that's the only way. The only way you could do it. Yeah, so Maria says in Scandinavia you can probably go to the poorest areas without being afraid or mugged and no weapons. I can tell you, Maria, I hung out with when I was in Sweden, I hung out with some really pretty gnarly criminals, frankly. Oh my god, how did I ever fall in with that? Good god. But they were really nice people in general. Really caring, loving. I never felt afraid with them or near them, you know. Really something. So I mean, this is the question. How many, if, what percent of Americans have a post-conventional morality of universal principles whose moral reasoning is based on universal ethical principles and justice? Right? when most people in the world, most adults, are like 3 or 4 in the conventional morality. Okay, why should a Ukrainian care about somebody who's not a part of their family or clan in these parts of Ukraine? I agree. If you give up land for peace, it makes the invasion worthwhile. If you give up land for peace, it teaches Russia that they can do it again and again and again and again. Okay, but I would also argue that most people in the world don't think that far ahead. And yes, Cheryl, you have an excellent. Oh wow, bikers in Jönköping. You're very close to it, Frinnerid, if you want to be precise. But yes, I did spend a lot of time in Jönköping, and yeah, frickin', I hate meth heads. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, Maria, you know. So yeah, I understand that there's nuance to this, Cheryl. The questions in the recent poll of Ukrainians was more nuanced than the headlines insinuated. Okay, but also, if you talk to the average Ukrainian, they'll tell you that most of their countrymen, if you give them a sack of potatoes, they'll vote for whatever you want. You know, Aussie Bugga, was there a blonde involved? Why Ukraine the Last Alliance? Well, it was Sweden, after all. Yes. So that is a question for NATO. Why should French or Germans or Italians care about what happens to Ukrainians? Yeah, wasn't demoralizing the general populace in this way kind of Hilo Putin's plan? Yeah. Yeah. And I would dare say that this past year or so worked. Definitely the lack of support from America from October through June had a great demoralizing effect. Thank you, CZ. Look at Israel and Gaza. Land for Peace has created years and years and years of conflict and war. And this is, JP was saying this, I think. I don't know. A lot of UA tubers are saying this. It's like, no, this is a terrible idea. This is going to create World War III, not prevent World War III. Okay. But I agree with someone further up who said it's Ukraine's decision, and probably a referendum is probably the right thing. I can't vote in it, but I hope to God that Ukraine can stay strong. I hope that the Ukrainians will continue to stay strong. And the only thing that I can say about it is, and once again, I reiterate that if you can reach out personally in some way, somehow, to a Ukrainian and say, hey, we support you, we individuals. I had another one of my students today. Listen, I have a student who is an interpreter for NATO. Okay. She training. She's an interpreter for NATO. Training Ukrainian soldiers. So she works directly with American and other nations, but mostly American trainers, who, so she's interacting with him every day, and she said to me, she said, James, I know that most Americans don't support Ukraine. I said, what the fuck? What the fuck are you talking about? And I said, no, that is absolutely not true, And I mean, I don't know if you're getting Russian propaganda there or what. But I brought up these articles. I said, no, look. Now, maybe the majority of Republicans don't support Ukraine, but the majority of Americans, far and away. Now, that has, the majority of, what is this? The majority of Republicans, yes, say the U.S. should not send weapons or military aid. 74% of Democrats and 50% of independent voters. The majority of America supports Ukraine. And, so this is a sign here. Which one? This one. This is a sign of Ukrainians saying, no one supports us. We feel alone. That despair. Cheryl, you're right. If they don't fight for their country now, they may end up fighting for Russia later. So, I mean it when I say that first of all, we got to do something about the International Legion. We have to help Ukrainians to understand that there are Americans, just average everyday Americans, fucking plumbers and construction workers or whatever, who come to Ukraine to fight. And there's one in my building right here, right now. Okay, 20-year-old kid, and he's training on drones. Okay, and he has no at all, none whatsoever, and he's not here because he's bloodthirsty. And he's not, sure as hell not here for the money, right. That's right. Many Ukrainians are seeing Congress and MAGA and Republicans raging about money and anti-Ukraine sentiments. And yeah, Maria, over 60% of Americans strongly support Ukraine, and 20% don't know the issue, and the rest is lost to MAGA. Yeah. So, this is the thing. All right. And so that's why your help is so important, and letting Ukrainians know that we support them is so important. That outside of those Ukrainians on YouTube, I have never met a Ukrainian who knew who Operator Starsky was. No idea. He's not even known at all in Ukraine. And I try to explain to people that, like, after Volodymyr Zelensky, Operator Starsky might be the most famous Ukrainian outside of Ukraine, and no one in Ukraine knows who he is. KKCG, a lot of Joe Walsh is in Ukraine, just an ordinary average guy, but they don't have this legend, this myth, this national story. They have the national story of freedom. Cheryl, yeah, they're probably seeing primarily bots. They're constantly infested. All of the Ukrainian channels, YouTube, and they're constantly being assaulted by Russian propaganda saying, America's just using you. Nobody in America cares about you. The Europeans, the Polish are going to take over Lviv, and on and on and on. Okay. Oh, Klitschko, that's fair. Klitschko might be a third after Starsky, I would argue. Maybe. I don't know. I don't have any data. I'm just Aussie Bugger. I do not follow much news outside of Ukraine. To be honest, this is the most important test since 1945. Well, the thing is, of course, and this is an argument that I had. Who was it? I've had this discussion at least twice with other Ukrainians. They were asking me about, why are you in Ukraine? Why do you think Ukraine is important? I'm like, Ukraine is the crucible, okay, the fulcrum around which the whole world is turning right now. And both JP on ATP Geopolitics and Artur Rehi on his last video were saying that, you know, the things that are happening in for example, Taiwan, okay, that's directly connected to what's happening in Ukraine. Venezuela, directly connected to what's happening in Ukraine, you know, and it's all rotating around that. And Ukraine, unfortunately, is the crucible for this worldwide fight for democracy. Okay. Guys, it's really been quite a week for me here. Here in Ukraine, you know, this is finally, I've been trying so hard for, you know, for weeks, and no, not weeks, months, years. That's what I meant to say. Years to finally be able to do something, what I consider, you know, concrete for Ukraine. Not just talking on YouTube, but being able to touch something with my hands, to be able to say, I did this. I helped Ukraine in this specific way, that I can point to and say it. And I'm so grateful that I was allowed to do that. And I'm going to show you right now the paltry, minimal thing that I was able to do this week for Ukraine. And I know that, you know, it's almost nothing. But here we go. So these are some of the drones that I myself made and built with my own hands here in Ukraine. Greg, I understand exactly how you feel. And there's some more of them. I made 10 drones. I built 10 drones for Ukraine today, this week. More importantly, I got trained on how to do it, so that I can take that knowledge back to my home city and hopefully be able to train others and set up a drone laboratory where you can come and Ukrainians can come, and we're going to freaking build drones, and we're going to develop new drones. CZ, I can't believe American support for Ukraine isn't off the charts. Our stories are similar. U.S. had to fight England for our independence in the Revolutionary War. Ukraine is now fighting for its freedom. I absolutely agree. And I think that part of the reason is that Ukraine is very far away and not familiar to most Americans. Most Americans have no idea. They know England, you know. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. Thank you, Bill. Cheryl, Tucker Carlson has warped us American minds so slowly they didn't even notice. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, CZ. It will be the first of many, is what I would say. And obviously, these do not have batteries on them yet. But I did the whole thing, soup to nuts. And last live stream, you saw some of my some of the steps, some of the stages in getting these things assembled. And I'm going to start releasing these videos. In fact, I released one today, this morning, and I just, as kind of shit, I better put that on mute, otherwise I'm going to get in trouble. But if you watch this, it's okay, it's Billie Eilish, or I guess it's a new song featuring Billie Eilish. It's like the number one video on YouTube right now. KK's GG, Calvinism at its finest. It's I see. Hang on. There we go. That's what I was looking at. That seems largely tied to fundamentalist exceptionalism and their implementation of tribalism. Yes. Thank you. God loves us, not them, and others not having what they have being proof of that. Yeah, I mean, we have these divergent traditions in the post-Renaissance, humanist Christianity, and the cultural descendants of that. How does MTG know all about Hungarians in Ukraine then? Yeah, Russian propaganda, and it's because it's anyway. So here you are, guys. I obviously, there's a lot of other things to talk about. A lot of other things happening in the news, but it's been a long week, and I'm pretty exhausted. So I'm gonna first of all thank everybody who has come to this live stream, and thank you for talking with me. And I hope that I'm not sure that I was able to be as eloquent as I thought I was going to be before the live stream. But now I hope you understand where I'm coming from, and my fear. My fear is that that this moment was the moment when Kamala was deceived into thinking that she could make a deal with Putin, and Ukrainians see that, and you see America's weakening resolve, and believe this terrible propaganda that Americans don't support Ukraine because they're getting blasted with that by Russian bots everywhere, and they give into that despair, and because they end up saying, well, we don't really have ties to that part of Ukraine anymore because nobody we know lives there anymore. So why should we continue to fight for it? Why should we continue to sacrifice our lives for it? And that's my fear, and that's why. So thank you very much, everybody. And wish me luck. And any of you, honestly, again, I would just say, if you can't help, by the way, one way that you can help is you can join the Last Alliance. I created this awesome team here that you can join and get cool stuff. And we will have, I swear to God, we'll have raffles and fun things and fun days ahead. But we can't give up and we can't give in. So Slava Ukraine. Do pobачення, everyone.